tell me anything. Just do 2 and 2s, 16 miles, don't breathe hard. Okay.
Welcome to the 294th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Welcome, and thank you for listening. We have a great podcast today. We are going to talk about the Treasure Coast Marathon in Stuart, Florida. I have as a guest today Hutch Strahm. He completed his first marathon at age 64, third in his age group. Spoiler alert all the way around, but we've got a lot of talking to do about that day. It was a great day in Florida. Windy, but a great day. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that, again, March 25th, we're going to be having another Zoom nutrition conference, this time about your gut microbes. I'm going to be doing sourdough bread from start to finish. Addie will be talking about fermentation dinners, such as a plant-based Reuben sandwich with tempeh and sauerkraut. So we're going to talk a lot about cooking, fermentation in your diet and your gut microbes. So it'll be a great conference. Go over to drdulaney.com, DOCTORDULANEY, and get your tickets. That'll be great. But on to the show with Hutch. I met Hutch in 2019 in March, so it's been 2 years, and he was clocking in at about 240 pounds in chest pain walking to the mailbox. And on Sunday, he completed a marathon, smiling ear to ear, feeling wonderful. And that's a lot about what this podcast is about, what you can do. And completing that marathon, it wasn't just about training program. We tailored it to his heart rate and his level of conditioning from the get-go. So it was a 14-month journey from walking to the mailbox to doing several 18 and 20-mile run walks. And we did the Galloway-type run-walk method and ended up with a 2-minute walk, 2-minute run. But we started much slower than that. We started with just a walk. And, when you run a marathon, you obviously are training up to an event and you're gaining fitness with your training program, but you get this huge boost after completing the marathon. If you think about it, when we're doing training events, we usually only run up to 18, 20. Some plans will have people run up to 22 miles at a slower pace, obviously, than they would run the marathon. But the idea is to be able to recover, and then each time you recover, you're gradually improving your fitness. And then the day of the marathon, you kind of lay it all on the line. You're depleting your glycogen stores, you're pushing yourself to the limit, and you have more soreness than normal. After most long runs, very little soreness the next day because you don't push yourself into that level. But when you push yourself into that full marathon level, and then recover from that, that's a huge bump in your endurance capacity and a huge jump in your training. And as Hutch will tell you, it's also life-changing to complete a task that you weren't sure you're going to be able to complete, and you're not sure what's going to happen, and you have to live it minute by minute, moment by moment throughout that whole marathon. And, we did a great job. Michael and myself and Hutch ran together the entire way, and we took it one step at a time, 1 mile at a time, 1 2-minute walk, 1 2-minute run interval, and we stayed and stuck to the plan, and I couldn't be happier with how it ended. A perfect race for anyone running a marathon, whether you're a beginner or a professional elite athlete, is to negative split, and we did it. We ran the second half faster than the first half, and that is a very difficult thing to do. If you look at finishing times in a marathon, I don't care how big the marathon is, if you go back through and look at the beginner in the front of the pack, in the back of the pack, in the middle of the pack, most people go out way too fast and then slow down and kind of drag it in, or try to hold on if they're a really good marathoner. The elites will try to negative split because they know that their best race is going to be when they have something left at the end to bring it all in. But it's really difficult to do that. With Hutch, there was a little bit of fear involved. He has a history of coronary artery disease, and he has had stents placed, and he'd had a heart attack. And the idea of pushing him too far in the beginning could mean that we wouldn't finish the race at all. And so that was ever present in my mind as his cardiologist and running partner, that we wanted to finish the race and finish the race well. So we did run off of his heart rate, and I knew what his heart rate should be. He knew what his heart rate should be, and we really stuck to that. And so this training program and plan that we did was tailored specifically for him. And I think it's real important, anybody out there that's, especially in an older age group that is going to run a marathon, that you run according to your plan, not according to the herd, because it's so tempting to get out there and see the herd and want to take off, and you feel great at the start line, and want to take off and run as fast as you can, and bad things can happen. And even when we started out, we started out in the very back of the pack. It was because of COVID precautions. I haven't run a race, a road race since COVID. Was very well run. They had what they called a relaxed start. So the marathon started at 6 a.m. and they encouraged the faster runners to go across the line first. And we held back to the very last to go across the start line. But even doing that, you see the people up in front of you, and it's tempting to push it a little bit. And Hutch says, "Hey, my heart rate's starting to go up. I'm in the 130s, 140s, and we backed down immediately, and we got our walk pace, and we got things under control." So even from the get-go, if we would have ignored that, it was dark, he had to watch his watch, we'd have gotten to some trouble if we'd have said, "Oh, let's just push it or get warmed up." So we really did a gradual warm-up, and then, got into the groove at about 5 miles and held it. In the middle miles, 12 to 17, we had a terrible headwind, 30-mile-an-hour gusts. I felt like Jim Cantori. If anybody's ever lived in hurricane or foul weather, the weather guy, Jim Cantori, is always there blowing, trying to stand up. That's what I felt like. You take a step forward and your legs would blow, and you kind of kick yourself every once in a while because your feet would go in a place where you weren't aiming them. But we did that for again, miles 12 to 17 or so, and turned around into that, and then had a bit of a tailwind, but it was still kind of a crosswind, so it was the footing was a little bit difficult. But, nevertheless, we held on and did those miles, and when at mile 21, you've got to go back across a big bridge over the water, again, really exposed to the wind, but, when you hit mile 20, you're bringing it home. And we had the bridge, which was a hill, so we didn't, push anything right there. But when we got across the bridge and we got back into town, miles 24 and 25, we, kind of pushed it just a little bit and didn't let his heart rate come up a little bit more, and then had a great finish. So, we'll be talking to Hutch about that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was, when we were training to do the marathon, and I was giving him the training plan, I was not only his running coach, but his cardiologist and physician, and the purpose of my practice is to reverse lifestyle diseases. And certainly exercise is a part of that, but nutrition is a huge part of that, as we all know. This is a plant-based wellness podcast. And so we were very focused on, again, getting him down to, his normal body mass index, getting his diabetes under control. He got off his insulin. He was off blood pressure medications, but we fought for his cholesterol. Here's a guy that had cholesterol issues all his life, and as a young man had coronary artery disease. So there's a familial component to it of his high cholesterol that he's had, and it wasn't easy. He didn't have carte blanche as far as eating anything he wanted to train for a marathon. And I think that's what a lot of people that are older don't take into consideration. Young people, the garage is empty. They can kind of eat the junk food and get away with it. And a lot of runners think they can eat the junk food and get away with it because they're running all these miles and maybe they're on the thin side of their body mass index is normal. and they're not checking labs, because they're assuming they're burning it off, and you might get away with a little bit more. But if you have heart disease and you already have high cholesterol, you already have high blood pressure, it is really important to get those things under control, especially when you're embarking on a training program as difficult as training for a marathon or an Ironman. So we watched his cholesterol, and I got to tell you that we had a few discussions that, he, when he was running the 18 or 20 milers, he would finish and he was hungry. And, you think, again, his weight was coming down. He thought, well, I can get away with a little bit more. And he had some slips in his cholesterol. And not because he was having a steak or having ice cream, but he was just having some pastries or having a couple extra cookies here and there, having some more nuts because he was hungry. And that was enough to raise his cholesterol again. So we had to rein things back in. And so he actually dropped his cholesterol 40 points the 3 or 4 weeks before the marathon just by really tightening his diet. And we made sure that he was getting his nitric oxide producing greens in, so he was vasodilating. Even some of the early runs, we had him take some spinach and beets before he even went out so that we could maximize his oxygenation when he was training. I think before the race, he had a Larabar and a banana. And again, we did gels during the race. And that's, here I am, a cardiologist giving a guy that has diabetes sugar, but your body runs on sugar. And we needed to get glucose in him to maintain his glycogen stores. But again, we did them very carefully according to his metabolism and how he could handle them. And it was really important that we start with a good glucose. So nutrition was extremely important in him being able to train and complete the race. So I don't want to leave that part out at all. I think that, again, we get the idea that if we're running and we can run, everything must be okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're not really, really straining the engine, and then things could actually turn awry and something bad could happen. So Hutch and I had a deal that he was going to eat for optimal nutrition, and he actually made the quote on several times that he put himself in marathon lockdown because of his nutrition. So we were getting the 5 to 6 cups of greens in a day. A lot of days he ate predominantly raw with big salads. He ate a lot of steamed Brussels sprouts, a lot of beets. Chickpeas were one of his favorite things. And again, just paid very, very close attention to his nutrition. And even during the race, it was a little bit difficult because someone that's not a diabetic takes in some source of calories after an hour and a half usually, and typically it's in the form of simple sugars, a goo or a gel, a Cliff Gel or Huma. Different products are out there. Some of them have oil, and I would really recommend against anybody using the ones with oil, especially in light of previous documentation that they cause decreased glucose uptake. So we go for a predominantly glucose or maltodextrin, some sort of simple sugar. We use maple syrup or the gels made by Cliff or goo. And again, there are simple sugars that can be taken up quickly. However, if you have glucose intolerance, you don't take them up quite as quickly. So we had him take them kind of slowly. Instead of taking one gel at once, he would kind of sip on it over the course of a mile. And he took a gel after every 2 to 2.5 miles after about mile 6. And there's a funny comment in there because he was trying to sip on them and the wind was blowing and some of the paper wrappings or the metal wrappings were kind of flipping in the air. We had goo all over the place where, the gel was running and he was trying to sip it. But the idea was to get enough glucose in to maintain his energy level, but not drive his glucose high. And again, that's part of the whole process to actually get his glucose tolerance the best that we possibly could, so that he would be able to take in the glucose and use it effectively during the race. So I think I've talked sufficiently about the preamble into this. I'm going to turn it over to Hutch in our interview, and I hope you enjoy it, and I'll come back and make a few closing remarks after the interview. Welcome, Hutch. So, couch potato to plant-based endurance athlete. But it's worse than that, right? Because you were a couch potato with a broken heart and diabetes. So just just to tell everybody out there how bad it got before you started we met March 12th, 2019. And you came to see me with a friend that was trying to introduce you into the plant-based lifestyle. He wanted you to live. And, tell us just a little bit about, how you got to that 240 pounds that on March 12th, 2019.
Yeah. So in my line of work, I do nighttime meetings, and I was eating late. And again, I didn't have really a work schedule. I didn't have an eating schedule. I didn't have a sleeping schedule. And so I would wake up, watch TV for a little bit, eat, get sleepy, and go back and take another nap, another 2 to 4 hour nap. And I never slept more than 4 hours. And so it was around the clock. So I'd be waking up at odd times and going to bed at odd times, eating whatever I wanted. So in 2016, I had chest pain, and we were living in Ohio, and I went, and they said they rushed me to the nearest medical center, and I had a heart attack. And they said it wasn't that bad. It was a 1 on a scale 1 to 10. So then we moved down to Florida, December of 2018, and at this point, I'm 240 pounds. I had been on a total with my adult diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And honestly, I don't even know all the medicines I was on. I was on a total of 10 at one time. When I met you, I was on 8. And so in 2019, right before I met you, I couldn't walk to the mailbox 50 feet without chest pain, shortness of breath, and it was amazing. It hurt, and so I'm just thinking, well, did I just come down to Florida to be put out to pasture and die, or what? I mean, I haven't even done anything. I was 61 years old at the time, and we were. I was at a church leadership meeting, and having a buffet, right? The average church buffet: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, gravy, nachos, everything, and extra cheese. And my friend is over there eating a salad out of a Tupperware, and I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Oh, I went plant-based about a year ago. Look at these pictures." I said, "I need to do more of that. My chiropractor up in Ohio told me to do more of that." And he goes, "See these pictures? I've lost 40 pounds. I said, "You look great." And he said, "I'm listening to these podcasts by this doctor, this plant-based cardiologist down in Port Charlotte. And this is her name. I'm going to send you some links, and maybe we can get you hooked up with her." And the rest is history. And I think a couple of weeks later, I sent in my paperwork, and he came with me. Kieran, my friend Kieran, came with me, and basically stepped in and saved my life.
Yeah, Kieran was certainly your angel, wasn't he?
He was. He sure was. He's a
So
great.
what did our cardiologist say after you got your stents? Because you had stents twice.
The PA came in, the physician's assistant came in. He sits down in my room. He goes, "I normally don't sit down." He goes, "But I think you care." He goes, "You're a nice guy." He goes, "Look, we do heart bypasses, heart caths and stents, and people are out smoking in the hallway an hour after their surgery." He goes, "But you seem like a nice guy, and you care." And he goes, "So I'm just going to sit down and tell you the way it is." He said, "If you don't change the way you're living, you're going to die in 3 to 5 years."
But didn't give you what change needed to be. Skinny up, get things.
All my doctors always said, watch your diet, watch your numbers, and watch your numbers. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Watch your numbers, and so, I was on 80 units of insulin, injectable insulin a night before bed, along with 4, glipizide, metformin, and all, the regiment, of diabetes, along with lisinopril and for blood pressure. I don't even know a statin I was on. I took myself off a statin because I read it was bad and something else. So anyways, no help from the medical. All it was they increased my meds and told me to watch my numbers.
So you start, we started talking about, we plant-based diet, and we talked about what that was. And I suggested you start doing a little bit of walking, and that didn't work.
Yeah. When I met you, I was ready. I was ready to change. And I knew you were plant-based. I knew I was going to go on a plant-based diet. I didn't know really what that was, except for fruits and vegetables. And when I came to you, Doc, I said 2 things to you. Number one, and my wife was with me, and Kieran was with us. And I said, Doc, if I die right now, my wife will kill me. And number 2, I said, if you remember, I said, I'll eat cardboard if you tell me to.
I did. And you told me that at 249 pounds. And I thought, yeah, I heard this before. I hope, but I just don't know that this is going to be, because sometimes, you were ready, and you're absolutely right. I couldn't tell how ready you were. I know that Kieran desperately wanted you to change. And sometimes when other people desperately want someone to change, they don't want to let them down, but they're, it's a big change, obviously. It was a big change. And you told me you've been in the restaurant business before you were in the ministry. And so, you've been around all the bad stuff. So, and nobody ever linked them together, really, So when was it that the click went off? Like, I think I want to run a marathon, because that wasn't what
Well, when I first started seeing you, you said, Hutch, you need to, eat this and get with my, my registered plant-based dietitian, Addie, right? And I did, and we, and she gave me all the information that I needed, and you said, and I want you to start walking. And I'm like, okay. So I went about 90 days, and I would go out to the mailbox, and my chest hurt so bad, and I was out of breath walking 50 feet. I didn't walk. And and for 90 days, you're asking me, are you walking? I'm like, well, it's really nice outside, and stuff. But no, I didn't walk. And finally, I had to confess to you, Doc, like after 90 days, 4 months of seeing you, I'm not walking. And you said, why? And I said, it hurts too bad. And you said, well, everything's stiff. I mean, your arteries and your veins are stiff. They need to loosen up.
So you started, we said 5 minutes out, 5 minutes back, 5 minutes out, 5 minutes back.
Yeah.
But when did let's just do a marathon, because frankly, I've put my posters up since my first marathon I'm looking at in Rome, 2001. I put the t-shirts and the medals, I framed them really nice and put them in the office, and not one person has come in and say, hey, I want to run a marathon.
Well, I'm so one day I was meditating, and my faith plays a great part in my life. But we are in ministry as missionary evangelists, and it just kind of burped out of me. It came out of me. You are an endurance athlete. And I'm like, where did that come from? I'm an endurance athlete. I'm 240. Well, I was probably, lost 10 or 15 by then. And, and then we had the Christmas potluck of 2019. And You know, the Bible says that the Lord gives us the desires of our heart. And that means that when we fully give our lives over to Him, He puts His desires in our heart for our lives. And so He placed this desire, Doc, in my heart to run a marathon. And I came to you and I said, I would like you to train me for a marathon. And you said, I can do that.
Yeah. And so was it, do we do 14 months or 16 months? 14 months?
14 months.
14 months. Yep. So 14 months. I
Six
sent
days a week.
6 days a week, and you followed them, and you sent me your Garmin Connect data because, frankly, at first I thought, well, if I'm going to make this marathon plan for this guy, I want to make sure he's actually running, not just collecting sheets of paper for me.
Yeah, I had to buy running shoes. I had to buy a Garmin. You know, I change it. I mean, the whole process was just huge in the beginning, Doc, because number one, you go, I want you to sleep 8 hours a day. I want you to eat at this time, and this time. And, you know, and I didn't have a sleeping pattern. I didn't have an eating pattern. I didn't have anything pattern. And now I'm adding 6 day a week training. And, you know, so eventually I started sleeping 4.5 hours and 5 because I was getting tired during trainings, and then, you know, worked my way up to between 6 and 8.
Yeah. And so we started walking, then walk, run. So it was 5 minutes, 5 minutes walking, 1 minute run. And we would do 4 and 1s. And we do some 3 and 2s, and we do, and we worked on your breathing, because this is not video, this is just audio, but Hutch is a bit of a mouth breather, and not as much now, but you know, he's always talking, and his mouth is open half the time, and so he, you know, we did a lot of breath work as well. So we'd have you do some breath holds when you were walking and count your steps, and really eased into things, and it started progressing. And you just were like you just took it and ran with it, and you enjoyed it. Bring me more, bring me more. Addie gave you some strength training programs. You worked with a strength coach a little bit, and you know, you just really just made tremendous. You melted away, but you know, you're not flabby. You maintained your muscle strength. And it was just great. And we finally did we looked at your times and your heart rate. We weren't cavalier about it. And you followed the reason why we wanted him to have a Garmin and you to have a Garmin so we could watch your heart rate. Because, you were at first, remember, you have some beats or you have some spinnies before you went out. So you didn't have chest pain. And if you went out too fast, you'd have some chest pain. So this wasn't just getting off the couch and starting a running program. You had hardware in your heart. And, it was dusting off the Corvette and putting new spark plugs in it and everything to kind of get you going again. But it continually progressed. And, we towed it on the start line, smiling from ear to ear.
Well, Doc, I've been trained to do what, the women in my life tell me to do. I've been married for 31 years. I just, by blind faith, I just did what you told me to do. Half the time, I didn't even know why. I didn't know what you were measuring. I didn't know anything. You just said, do this, this, and this, eat this, this, and this. And that's what I did.
And it was good. So we started off, and you got to the point where running 2 minutes and walking 2 minutes was very comfortable. And we set a max on your heart rate at about 125, 130. And we said, we're going to, see what we get. And our goal was to run the second half faster than the first and to finish standing up with a smile, breathing on your own and me not to have to do any CPR. And that was, those were our goals to see where we went. You wanted the time, you wanted to go fast. You were a little bit the sea biscuit, and you started to come out a little bit. It had to hold you back a little bit. You were, but we say, let's be reasonable. we want to get through with a smile on your face and feeling great. And so we started out, and it was perfect weather. Little wind, but it's perfect weather, 60s. And, we just did it one step at a time. Got to be very, very windy. I thought that the venue, we couldn't have asked for a better venue. The volunteers were spectacular and kind, and it was a nice town. We found a vegan restaurant real fast, and the marathon ran through some beautiful neighborhoods and a big bridge, probably a couple mile long bridge that ships could go underneath.
Yeah, that was a big bridge, and
a big windy bridge.
But I couldn't ask for anything more. When you told me that you were going to be by my side the whole way, I was just totally blown away and amazed, Doc, by your all in attitude at helping me, and to have a veteran endurance athlete like yourself, and Michael was there. I mean, both of you have probably 50 to 60 marathons, Ironmans, and I got my doctor right alongside. So I mean, how could I lose?
Wasn't going to be any losing. And I want to I don't know if you had time to take in. So if we go right to the end, and then we'll work our way back through it a little bit. But we did run 2 minutes and walked 2 minutes. And we did our pace at 11 miles was 15:21. At 18, it was 15:41. That's when we got from mile 12 to 18 is when we had the really huge headwind. I mean, try to stand up in a Jim Cantori type winds. Mile 25 down to 14:47. And mile 26, 14:45 with an overall of 15:18. So we not only negative split, but your best mile was your last mile, and 13 something pace for that last mile. And, so, I mean, you couldn't have asked for any better times. Now, I went back because they posted the results today. And by the way, congratulations, you became third in your age group. So you'll get some hardware for that, along with the big medal.
Wow.
And yep. Yeah. And, but if you look, I looked at, people that ran, were in 76th place. There were, 286 people running the marathon. 3 did not finish. And I'm sorry, 225 people ran the marathon. 2 did not finish. And if you looked at the people in either 76th place or 126th place or 156th place, everybody got slower. Everybody slowed down through the marathon. Very few people had negative splits and certainly didn't get faster at the end. So, I think that was, I think we did really good. I don't think, even if the wind really added time to us at mile 12 through 17, because it was like running up a hill. I mean, into that wind, it was, your legs were kicking each other when you pick them up, your feet would move in different places. And it beat you up a little bit, beat us all up a little bit in that spot. But, in Florida, if there hadn't been wind, that wind also kept us a little cool too. And we had the tailwind coming back. And I kept saying, we're going to make up on the way back. But, when you get so tired, there's always in the back of your mind with a marathon, if I'm getting tired as I go, how am I going to get faster? That just seems, it's hard to wrap your head around a negative split in a marathon, because you think that, while I'm running this thing, I'm going to get tired. I've got to slow down. And what happens if I save myself too much? Will I have something left in the tank that I could have given? Or, if I save myself, will I still slow down because it's just a marathon and you're going to slow down? So that's kind of the risk that a lot of people have to grapple with, is how fast can you go out and not just, blow out and have to limp in? And certainly, I told you all my horror stories. There have been more positive splits and more limping in than there have been running good, so I can on one hand count the good ones easy, maybe not even fill up a hand. let alone, start out with like this. So I was just over the moon. And, I think if we'd have pushed it anymore, we probably with that wind would have got into some trouble maybe. And I think if we hadn't had the wind, we might have got really hot because it got to be close to 70, I think, near the end. And if we hadn't, we're all sporting, rednecks and some sunburn. All right. And so I think that the heat might have got to us if we hadn't had the wind. So it was just a perfect day. Really it did. The scenery was beautiful. We had great times. The staff and the people at the aid stations were great. And COVID, it didn't really enter into anything. They had little bottles of water, little bottles of Gatorade. I personally think it's a great way to do aid stations. And I think the races should learn from that. We carried handhelds, and I think that's the way to go. You fill your handheld up and keep going rather than waste a bunch of water in cups and a lot of different, there's so many things thrown around. So I think there was less litter with doing it that way. Would you do anything different?
I think you had a great game plan, Doc. I told you, I said, don't expect me to talk much because I've never ran with anybody else before. I always trained by myself. I'd run between Dunedin, Florida and Clearwater. It's about 2-3 miles and back and forth, for my training. And I would just say hi to a couple people on the trail, but I never ran side by side with anybody in my life. So I said, don't expect me to talk much, but I had such great company. I think you tricked me actually into worrying about if I was going to get tired or anything, because we just kept having a conversation the whole way. And I never thought about getting tired. I just thought about running with you and following the pace. And you paced perfectly. I told you what my heart rate was every 10 seconds. And I could tell after a while what was high and what was low. And you backed the pace off and you increased the pace as we dialogued the whole way. So it was awesome.
Yeah, you weren't quiet. We talked. And
yeah.
we had a great time. Michael looked at houses and
yeah, he showed us homes, structures, horticulture. I call you and Michael my two guardian angels, actually. And I couldn't have been with two more awesome people, experienced, warrior endurance athletes than you. And, Michael's showing us homes and we're talking about palm trees and mango trees and the lizards, how big they were. And we even had a dolphin sightings. Michael's over at the edge of the bridge. I'm running. He stops and there's dolphins, So it was amazing. He was my pacer. He took all my garbage, all my gel packs. When they were done, I handed it to him instead of putting them in my belt, which I did. I had gel from head to toe, and I got it all over the back of you too. And yeah, you had never been gelled before until you ran with Hutch. But
I always finish the race dirty, but yeah.
Yeah, but and then he was my wind blocker. He goes, I'm going to get on the right side of you to block you from the wind, and follow me. And boy, he was just a real blessing. You guys were a real blessing to be there. You were watching me. You were monitoring me every second. I couldn't even dream of, it was like a divine, you guys were like divine babysitters, it was awesome.
So, something that you don't all, obviously people haven't met, some of you haven't met Hutch yet, but Hutch he wears bright colors. So Hutch, where did the bright colors come from? You have, first time, one of the first visits you came here, you had on bright pink Chuck Taylors. And, it's, give me bright shirts and give me this, so where'd that come from? Have you always been, you're a Toledo guy. Is that, that bright color?
I'm from home. I'm from Holy Toledo, and it's not just a saying, but yeah, we moved to Florida, and from Ohio, sunshine, 10% of the time up there to sunshine all the time. So we started buying bright colored shirts and and going from there. So we like color. Yeah.
Yeah. We had a good time sporting the colors. So it's been, I guess it's been 24 hours since you finished your race. Have you pushed the button for the next one?
It was so funny. At dinner the night before, we're eating, and Michael's like, well, what's your thoughts on after this race? Are you going to run a 50 miler with us or what? And I'm sitting there like, it's the night before, the biggest, this was a life-changing event. It was right up there with Jesus and my marriage, and he's asked me about a 50 miler, and I haven't even got to the start line of the 26.2er, so I'm like, I'm not sure yet, and I don't have any plans right now. I feel good about this, and we'll just see where it goes. I don't think it's one and done for sure. And, I told you earlier, I said, running's fun, but it was a little boring to me. I might but bicycles, going 10, 20 miles an hour on a bicycle and crashing is not a good thing. So we're looking at, a little mini triathlon. I could probably start swimming. I haven't swam in 45 years, just like I didn't run in 45 years. So I'm going to keep it open.
Yeah, I think that you need to bask in the glory a little bit longer. You earned it, and just enjoy the moment. You've got your medal on. They're really nice medals, by the way. For a little race, the bling was very, very nice. So I think that was pretty cool.
I felt like everything went real fast from the time that we got there the night before to race time, and I really didn't have much time to think. And then the race is happening, and I'm just trying to run, And after I got done, Michael had to catch me at mile 24 aid station. I stumbled out of the thing, almost went down. He grabbed me. You steadied me once too, in the wind. I almost fell over. So I'm thankful for you guys for what you've done. But I sat in the hotel and I couldn't talk for about 10 hours. And I was just trying to replay what happened in my mind. And I was just in awe. I can't believe I did this. And I can't even talk when I even think about it. I'm just in awe. And I'm just in awe of what happened. It was such an experience.
I got to tell you, it's one of my favorite marathons. And Michael's as well. Of all the marathons that we've been through, it was we had such a great time the whole way around. And like I said, I very rarely have paced myself as good as we paced. And the only other person I told you I paced Addie to her engagement marathon, because I was trying to get her to the finish line without, so she'd be happy when you say yes.
I was afraid that I wouldn't have the strength to walk to the car, So normally when I train, I pull up in front of my house and I walk 10 feet, from the car to the house after I run. But this, we had to park a ways away, 2-3 blocks away, and I'm like, I don't know how in heaven's sake I'm going to be able to walk 2 blocks. And I'm a little wobbly, but we made it to the car.
Yeah, it was good. Well, I think it's a great story, a great motivation for a lot of people. You're never too old to pull out your shoes from the closet. It's not over till it's over. As far as your heart goes, everything's got better as far as your heart, your diabetes goes, and it's it took a lot of hard work, and you did all the hard work, but it certainly pays off, and you can have fun being plant-based, and you can have fun running 26 miles. And I think that's the most important thing, right? The most important thing is that whatever you do is you got to have fun at doing it, especially if you're going to do it for 14 months or 6 hours and change and whatever. So,
Well, say how much that I appreciate you and Team Dulaney and for saving my life. And there's a story here to tell. And I sat in my hotel room after the race. I did take a little nap. When I woke up, I recorded for about an hour and a half, just some thoughts, and the title. This title was like, the title came to me like, run for your life, run for your life, and then the Hutch Strahm story or whatever. It's funny, Doc. I always I give people nicknames. I give myself nicknames, and I would do a selfie video to you once a week after I trained, just to show you I was still alive. And I would always call myself, "Hey Doc, it's your favorite apprentice endurance athlete in training, coming to you live from Dunedin, Florida." So, I always called myself the apprentice endurance athlete in training, and I'm still an apprentice, and I'm still in training. But I just want to thank you for giving me one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Well, I think we all are apprentices in training, and I had a good time. And like I said, one of my favorite marathons. So thank you for taking time to go over this and rehash this out with me. It's not the last time you and I will be rehashing this for sure. But I thought, there's so many people waiting to hear from the practice and in the podcast on how we did. So I wanted to share with him. So I appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. And it was just such an honor and a privilege to be with you guys.
So I hope you really enjoyed that interview with Hutch Strahm. It was my pleasure, Michael Hubbard's pleasure, to run with him. We had such a great day. Hutch didn't run a 5K or a 10K or a half marathon before he did it. He just trained for a marathon, and that was what his goal was, and he had his mind focused on it. I think he probably peaked at 35 or 40 miles a week, which was fantastic for somebody that's just started running again. But I want to leave you with one Bible verse for Hutch, because Hutch is a pastor. And I ran into this verse from Ryan Hall's new book, which I would recommend, and I hope to have him on the podcast as well. The book is Run the Mile You Were In. And this is from Proverbs 4:23. It says, "Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life." And I couldn't think of anything more fitting for Hutch, for my practice, and it was such a pleasure and such a gift to be able to help Hutch achieve his goal, and it was probably one of the highlights of my career doing this, and it made me very, very happy. So again, thank you, Hutch, for being on the podcast. Thank you, Michael, for running with us. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you tune in. And we've signed up for the Treasure Coast Marathon next year. So I hope that we have a crowd of plant-based striders running that marathon. So eat plant-based, get strong. If you want help running a marathon, if you want help doing a training program, go to our website, drdulaney.com. We'd love to train you to be healthy and happy for whatever kind of endurance event you want to do. So again, thanks for listening.